Geography lesson by the poet Zulfikar Ghosh, Class 8 NCRT Honeydew. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Sonic's EduHub Let's Learn English. If you have not subscribed my channel, please do subscribe it, like it, leave your valuable comments in the chat box so that it can motivate me to do more videos. Also don't forget to share it with your friends. So let's start with the video. Moving on with the biography of Zulfikar Ghosh. The expatriate Zulfikar Ghosh, originally Khwaja Zulfikar Ahmed. Expatriate means he was a person who lived outside the country, as that means he was living abroad. He was known as Khwaja Zulfikar Ahmed. He was one of the well-known novelist, poet, short story writer, autobiographer, journalist, educationalist, essayist, and literary critic. He was born on 13 March 1935 at Sialkot, that is a city in East Punjab, which later on became West Pakistan after the partition of subcontinent in 1947. Now, talking about his father, his name was Khwaja Mohammad Ghosh. He moved his extended Muslim family to the bustling city of Bombay after World War II in 1942 for business opportunities. Ghosh was deeply affected by communal tension and the horrific partition riots. Now let's discuss the title of the poem. The poem Geography lesson describes a poet's opinion, his viewpoint of the land below when it is viewed from the sky. It basically shows the demographics of the earth, the different locations. When the jet flew over 6 miles, the poet could realize that our world has more water than land. So this is one of the significant title that could be given to this poem. Now moving on with the theme of the poem. The poem mainly deals with two important themes. First one, how earth looks. First, how earth looks from height. So that is what the poet wants to discuss. The poet explains how it looks when the flight took off, then at a distance of 10,000 feet, and finally from 6 miles above. All the times the view of the earth was quite different. Only after going to such a height, the poet understands why people have settled in an organized way. Water and land are the reasons. So these are the primary needs for the man in order to survive. And this led to the establishment of civilizations along the rivers. The second and the most important theme of the poem is poet's questions why people have divided themselves from each other. He wonders why there are borders, why people hate each other, and why they shed blood. Earth is one. People were also supposed to be one and remain peacefully with each other. But instead, they have hate against each other. This is why there are borders. As the poet has seen partition and riots, the poem somehow reflects his experience of worse times. Introduction to the poem Geography lesson. Now the poem is divided into 3 parts. Here 3 heights of a jet plane and how it is travelled to study about the earth is been described by the poet. On reaching each stage, soaring higher and higher, that is moving higher and higher, the poet in the plane learned new facts, that is information about the earth's past. But only one question remained unanswered. He was totally confused. Now let's look at the 3 stages from where the plane made observations. So we'll go through the 3 stanzas and their explanation. Before moving on with stanza 1 and its explanation, you should know, is there any rhyme scheme present in the poem? So over here the geography lesson is a 24 lined single stanza poem that does not have any rhyme scheme. In the poem, the poet talks about three important things. You should know what are the three important things. First, how everything looks from the sky. Second, how civilization was established and the reason behind the unorganized settlement. And third, his question to himself, why people hate each other. Now let's discuss the detailed summary of this poem after going through the poem stanza wise. So with the stanza 1, let's start. When the jet sprang into the sky, it was why the city had developed the way it had. Seeing its scale 6 inches to the mile, there seemed an inevitability about what on ground had looked haphazard, unplanned, and without style. The poet says, when the jet sprang, that is the second form of spring, okay? Here it means lifted off, sprang means into the sky. It was very clear, that is, the poet understood why the city had developed the way it had, because everything looked so small that a mile seemed to be like 6 inches. That means everything looked small from the above. It becomes inevitable, that is certain, that everything developed unplanned, without style, and without principle of an organization on the ground. Ground here means earth. The poet repeats the first line over here. When the jet sprang into the sky, that is, he saw all this when the jet, that is, aeroplane, was in the air. Stanza 2. When the jet reached 10,000 feet, it was clear why the country had cities where the rivers ran and why the valleys were populated. The logic of geography, the land, water attracted man, was clearly delineated when the jet reached 10,000 feet. In the second part, the poet says that when the plane reached 10,000 feet in the sky, the poet came to know why the cities of countries are located near the rivers and also the valleys are so populated. Next, the poet provides the logic of geography, which is clearly delineated. Delineated means depicted or shown. That is the reason that made the people settle in an unorganized way. According to him, land and water, which are the lifeline and the reason for our survival, attracted the early humans. The land here refers to the green land on which we cultivate food and make the shelter. So, like the previous stanza, the poet repeats the line, when the jet, that is the aeroplane, reached 10,000 feet, to tell that he came to know about all this only when the airplane was 10,000 feet up in the sky and he could see land and water. Stanza 3. When the jet rose 6 miles high, it was clear the earth was round, and that it had more sea than land. But it was difficult to understand that the men on the earth found causes to hate each other, to build walls across cities, and to kill from that height. It was not clear why. In the third part, the poet says that when the airplane was at the height of around 6 miles, it became clear that the earth is round, and that is, it had more sea than land. That means it had more water. According to him, he could not understand why people hate each other on earth. So, when we build walls, here it means borders, across cities, that means countries, and kill each other, attack each other. So, at such a height, the poet sees a single earth and wonders why people are divided. He could not understand. So, that is the conclusion of the poem. New words and their meanings in the poem, the geography lesson. First one, inevitable, that is, cannot be avoided. Haphazard, without plan or order, delineated, shown. Sprang, to rise or to move up. Miles, a unit of linear measure. Valleys, deep areas on land between mountains and hills. Now let's have a quick overview on the summary of the poem. The poem is about the way Earth looks from different altitudes. It is divided into three parts. When the jet takes off and starts to climb up in the sky, you can have full height view of the city. The city grew as per its necessity and did not grow as per proper planning. It does not have any particular style. It even looked 6 inches from a certain height, revealing its true structure. When the jet climbs higher up to about 10,000 feet, he could apprehend the fact that cities grew water resources. Water fulfilled the necessities like agriculture, transport, business, and others. He found that valleys were populated, which met the necessities of the people. When the jet went above 6 miles, there is more water than land on the earth. While appreciating the geographical niceties of a planet, the poet is unable to understand the tendency to build borders, to erect walls, to create fences. Then he reflected that people on earth are selfish and narrow, for they hate each other. He found the earth to be one, but not the people living on the earth are divided for shallow reasons. In the light of the poem, let's check what you have understood. First question: what geographic lesson did the poet in the jet learn when the jet just took off? Answer: the development humans have made so far have not been planned and they were made out of inevitability, that is, unavoidability. Second question: what geographic lesson did the poet in the jet learn when the jet reached 10,000 feet? Answer: from a height of 10,000 feet above the ground, the earth's cities were found located on the banks of rivers and a little above the river level on the valleys. Third question: what geographic lesson did the poet in the jet learn when the jet reached 6 miles high? Answer: the spherical shape of the earth was no more under dispute. When the poet observed the earth from a height of 6 miles, that is, he understood the earth was round. Question number 4. What was difficult to understand about the earth when the jet was 6 miles high? Answer: when the jet was 6 miles above, it was difficult to learn why people hate each other, why he builds walls across cities, and why he kills other people. Fifth question: what is the poet trying to bring out about human beings, the earth, and learning? It can be in a type of a message. Human beings learned much about the earth, its shape, the emergence of cities and nations, but we failed to learn how to love each other, live peacefully on this wonderful planet. Poet's final thoughts from 6 miles height on the plain. you can see there were two thoughts involved. First one, that is understood. The poet understood that the earth is round and it had more sea, that is water, than the land on planet earth. But what did the poet had a confusion, or what did he not understand? That was why people find reasons to hate one another, why people kill, why people build walls to separate one from the other. So these were the two thoughts which poet was continuously going through in his mind when he was at the 6 miles height on the plain. Moral message of the poem: let's love one another and let's not fight with one another.